My HOA tried to take down my solar panels, but what happened next shocked the entire neighborhood. Chapter 1: The Green Dream. The morning sun reflected off the roof of the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting a warm glow across neatly trimmed lawns and perfectly lined driveways. Among these homes, one homeowner had a vision that went beyond conformity, a vision of sustainability, cost saving, and a commitment to renewable energy. They had spent months researching solar panels, consulting installers, calculating electricity savings, and planning the perfect layout for maximum efficiency. The sun would now do more than illuminate their home, it would power it, reducing bills and contributing to a cleaner environment. The installation day arrived with a sense of excitement. Contractors arrived early, unloading sleek solar panels, wiring, and inverters. The homeowner watched as the panels were lifted and secured on the roof, each one fitting perfectly into place, gleaming under the bright sky. To them, it was more than technology, it was a statement, a step toward the future, and a small rebellion against outdated norms that hindered progress. Yet, not everyone in the neighborhood shared their enthusiasm. Almost immediately, whispers began to circulate. Neighbors peeked from windows, curious, some skeptical, others openly disapproving. It didn't take long before the first letter arrived, official HOA stationery bearing a bold, unnerving seal. The homeowner's heart sank slightly as they read the contents. The HOA claimed the solar panels ruined the neighborhood aesthetic and demanded immediate removal, warning of fines that could reach thousands of dollars if ignored. At first, the homeowner was incredulous. How could installing a sustainable energy system be considered an offense? They reread the HOA covenants and bylaws, searching for any clause that could possibly prohibit solar panels. There was none. Confident but cautious, they began documenting everything: the installation process, correspondence, and even notes on the panel's energy output. They knew that knowledge would be their shield if the HOA attempted to escalate the situation. Neighbors began choosing sides. Some expressed quiet admiration for the bold move, inspired by the environmental and financial benefits of solar energy. Others whispered warnings, citing fear of HOA retaliation. The homeowner found themselves at the center of a subtle storm, a tension that grew with every passing day as the HOA followed up with notices, threatening fines, and vague threats of legal action. Despite the intimidation, the homeowner remained steadfast. They researched local and state renewable energy laws, discovering protections that favored homeowners installing solar systems. Many states had statutes specifically preventing HOAs from imposing unreasonable restrictions on solar installations, recognizing the greater societal benefits. The homeowners' resolve strengthened as they realized the HOA's threats were not only unfounded but potentially illegal. Meanwhile, social media in the neighborhood began to buzz. Residents took photos of the panels, commenting on the modern aesthetic and the visible reduction in utility bills reported by the homeowner. A sense of quiet support emerged, subtly challenging the HOA's authority. The homeowner, though cautious, felt a growing confidence. There was more at stake than just a roof full of panels. This was about fairness, legality, and standing up to outdated rules. As the chapter of initial conflict closed, the homeowner prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Letters, emails, and notices were cataloged meticulously. Arguments were prepared, backed by the law. The HOA might think it could intimidate them into compliance, but the homeowner had something the HOA underestimated: preparation, knowledge, and community support. The sun set behind the newly installed panels, casting long, reflective shadows across the front yard. To some, it was a reminder of rebellion, to others, a symbol of hope. And as the neighborhood settled into a quiet evening, the homeowner knew one thing for certain: the battle for their right to go green had only just begun. End of Chapter 1, natural break for Chapter 2. Chapter 2, the escalation. The following week, tension in the neighborhood escalated. The homeowner's once quiet street became a subtle battlefield, where glances, whispers, and clipped comments spoke volumes. The HOA, sensing that their initial threats had not achieved compliance, intensified their efforts. A formal notice arrived via certified mail, this time emphasizing a looming fine of $500 per month for every day the solar panels remained on the roof. The language was harsh and bureaucratic, designed to intimidate and create doubt. The homeowner, however, was unshaken. Each document from the HOA was carefully filed, logged, and cross-referenced with state and local renewable energy laws. They discovered multiple clauses explicitly preventing HOAs from restricting solar installations unreasonably. It was clear the HOA was relying on intimidation rather than legality. Every word in their notices became ammunition for the homeowner's growing arsenal of legal knowledge. Meanwhile, the neighborhood's social dynamics shifted. Some neighbors who had once been neutral or skeptical now quietly sided with the homeowner, impressed by their resolve and the visible benefits of solar power. Electricity bills for the homeowner dropped dramatically, and subtle energy meters became a point of envy and curiosity. Others, still loyal to the HOA, spread rumors that the panels were ugly or dangerous, trying to sway opinion against the installation. Emails and calls between the homeowner and the HOA escalated in intensity. Each response from the HOA was formal, threatening, and vague, leaving room for misinterpretation and fear. But the homeowner approached each interaction with meticulous care, responding with facts, citations, and legal references. Every threat was countered with calm authority. While the HOA attempted to project dominance, the homeowner was quietly building momentum. Tension crept into casual neighborhood interactions as well. Walks past the home drew curious stares and hushed conversations. Some children waved at the homeowner, pointing excitedly at the shiny new panels. The homeowner smiled, realizing that even small gestures of community support mattered. Meanwhile, the HOA president became increasingly flustered, resorting to more frequent notices and stern warnings in an effort to regain control. The homeowner's research revealed a critical loophole. Many states had public utility protections that overrode HOA bylaws, particularly regarding sustainable energy. This discovery marked a turning point. The homeowner was no longer simply defending their panels, they were now armed with the law itself. Every communication from the HOA could potentially be used against them, exposing not only overreach but also illegal enforcement. As the conflict escalated, the homeowner began documenting the situation on social media, creating posts that highlighted both the solar installation and the HOA's aggressive tactics. Images of the gleaming panels accompanied by factual commentary sparked interest and debate among community members, extending far beyond the street itself. The HOA likely had no idea that their actions were creating a story that would spread, turning public opinion against them. Late one evening, a particularly stern notice arrived, threatening legal action if the panels were not removed immediately. The homeowner studied it carefully, highlighting inconsistencies and vague claims. They realized that the HOA had overstepped not only morally but legally. This was no longer a matter of aesthetic preference, it had become a fight for rights, for truth, and for principle. As Chapter 2 closed, the homeowner felt a mixture of anticipation and resolve. The HOA had escalated, but so had their preparation. They were no longer the subject of intimidation, they were ready to challenge it. The street, once quiet and predictable, now hummed with tension, the reflection of solar panels glinting in the late afternoon sun, a symbol of both innovation and defiance. End of Chapter 2, natural break for Chapter 3. Chapter 3, the breaking point. The confrontation between the homeowner and the HOA had reached a critical stage. What began as polite notices and veiled suggestions of community harmony had evolved into full-fledged threats of fines and legal action. The homeowner, armed with documentation, knowledge of renewable energy laws, and growing neighborhood support, had reached a point where patience and preparation would be tested. The atmosphere on the street was thick with anticipation, neighbors watching with a mixture of concern and curiosity. The HOA's communications became increasingly aggressive. Letters were delivered weekly, each one more severe than the last, citing imaginary aesthetic violations, exaggerating supposed complaints from neighbors, and referencing clauses in the bylaws that did not apply. The homeowner meticulously analyzed each statement, noting inconsistencies and legal inaccuracies. It was clear that the HOA was overreaching, but they persisted, hoping to intimidate through persistence. Meanwhile, social pressure began to mount. some neighbors, previously neutral, had started siding with the homeowner openly, questioning the legitimacy of the HOA's threats. Conversations in driveways and during walks revealed frustration with the HOA's strict rules and overbearing behavior. The homeowner realized that the conflict was no longer isolated to a single household, it had become a community concern. Public opinion was slowly shifting in their favor. The homeowner also leveraged technology, documenting each notice, taking photographs of the installation, and recording timestamps. Every interaction became evidence. They discovered a key legal precedent in the state's renewable energy statutes, which stated explicitly that HOAs could not impose unreasonable restrictions on the installation of solar energy systems. This revelation transformed the homeowner's strategy from reactive defense to proactive challenge. Tensions escalated further when the HOA president called for an emergency board meeting, aiming to vote on immediate penalties and potential removal of the panels. The homeowner, aware of their legal rights, requested to attend as an observer. The board's plan to intimidate and exclude the homeowner backfired, as their presence was both a reminder of legal protections and a signal to the community that they were prepared to defend their rights. On the day of the meeting, the atmosphere was tense. Board members whispered nervously, glancing at the homeowner, who stood calm and composed. The HOA president attempted to dominate the discussion, insisting that the panels violated community aesthetics and must be removed. The homeowner countered silently, knowing that any misstep or false statement could be recorded and later used against the HOA. Outside the meeting room, the golden solar panels gleamed under the afternoon sun, a visual testament to resilience and progress. The homeowner imagined the irony: the panels, intended to reduce energy costs and environmental impact, had inadvertently become a symbol of justice and lawful defiance. The HOA president, blinded by authority and arrogance, had failed to anticipate that the homeowner had meticulously prepared for every angle of attack. By the evening, the tension reached its peak. The HOA had made its stance clear: compliance or fines. The homeowner, however, had reached the breaking point themselves, not in frustration, but in readiness to take decisive action. They had gathered enough evidence, legal support, and community backing to expose the HOA's overreach and protect their right to sustainable energy. As the chapter closed, the homeowner felt a mixture of anticipation and determination. The breaking point was not one of defeat, but of empowerment. The stage was set for a dramatic reversal, one that would challenge the HOA's authority and bring justice not only for themselves but for every homeowner facing similar restrictions. The solar panels glinted in the setting sun, a silent yet powerful symbol of the battle yet to come. End of Chapter 3, natural break for Chapter 4, Turning the Tables. Chapter 4, Turning the Tables. The homeowner had reached a decisive moment. Weeks of intimidation, threats, and bureaucracy had culminated in a realization: the HOA's aggression was not just unfair, it was unlawful. Armed with state renewable energy statutes, detailed documentation, and mounting community support, the homeowner began crafting a strategy that would flip the situation entirely. It was no longer a fight merely to keep solar panels, it had become a battle to hold the HOA accountable. The first step involved presenting the HOA with irrefutable evidence. Every letter, notice, and threat was meticulously catalogued. Photographs of the panels, installation dates, and compliance with building codes were organized into a clear, professional dossier. Additionally, citations from state laws and renewable energy regulations were included, demonstrating that any attempt to enforce fines or removal would constitute illegal action. The homeowner understood the power of preparation. The law was on their side, and they were ready to wield it effectively. Simultaneously, word spread quietly among neighbors. Those who had remained neutral began expressing support, sharing their own frustrations with HOA restrictions. Some even attended a neighborhood meeting to observe, witnessing the homeowner's calm and authoritative approach. The dynamic shifted: the once intimidating board now faced a subtle form of social pressure. Community members realized that the homeowner was not only standing firm but representing a broader principle of fairness and lawful rights. The homeowner also leveraged the digital landscape. Social media posts, emphasizing sustainable energy benefits and the HOA's excessive restrictions, gained attention. Comments poured in from both local residents and broader audiences sympathetic to green initiatives. The narrative was clear: a homeowner had done everything right, yet faced threats from a board overstepping its authority. Public sentiment began to tip decisively, amplifying the homeowner's leverage. Tensions within the HOA intensified. Board members, once confident in their control, now expressed doubt. Meetings grew chaotic as legal arguments were introduced and documentation presented. The HOA president, previously a figure of authority and intimidation, began to falter. Missteps, exaggerated claims, and attempts to silence the homeowner were countered methodically, highlighting the contrast between preparation and bluff. Every error the HOA made became another arrow in the homeowner's quiver. With the legal groundwork in place, the homeowner initiated formal complaints with relevant municipal authorities. Each communication meticulously detailed the HOA's overreach, highlighting violations of state laws protecting solar installations. The response was immediate. City officials acknowledged the homeowner's rights and indicated potential sanctions against the HOA for attempting to enforce unlawful restrictions. The balance of power shifted decisively. The neighborhood watched with growing fascination. Conversations shifted from quiet speculation to open discussions about rights, sustainability, and fairness. The homeowner's calm determination became a source of inspiration, a demonstration that knowledge and preparation could overcome bureaucracy and intimidation. The solar panels, once merely tools for energy efficiency, had become a symbol of resilience, justice, and empowerment. As Chapter 4 concluded, the homeowner knew the next stage was imminent, a direct confrontation that would determine whether the HOA could recover its authority or be exposed completely. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown. The sun reflected off the panels in brilliant rays, a silent herald of victory waiting to be claimed. End of Chapter 4, natural break for Chapter 5, the showdown. Chapter 5, the showdown. The day of reckoning arrived. The homeowner, armed with a meticulously organized dossier of evidence, legal statutes, and neighborhood support, prepared for the HOA board meeting that would determine the fate of the solar panels. The tension in the air was palpable. What had begun as a simple initiative to install sustainable energy had now evolved into a high-stakes confrontation, a battle between knowledge and intimidation. The HOA president entered the meeting with confidence, carrying stacks of printed notices and an air of authority that had intimidated others for years. However, the homeowner's presence, calm and composed, immediately shifted the room's dynamic. Board members, previously emboldened by authority, exchanged uneasy glances, aware that the homeowner had spent weeks preparing for precisely this moment. As the meeting commenced, the HOA president began to assert the usual claims: aesthetic violations, community standards, and threats of fines. The homeowner, however, responded silently with documents, visual evidence, and citations from state renewable energy statutes. Every argument the HOA presented was met with undeniable proof that their demands were not only unfounded but illegal. The imbalance of power became increasingly apparent. Neighborhood supporters attended in quiet solidarity. Their presence was subtle but impactful: whispers of encouragement, nods of approval, and occasional pointed glances at the board reinforced the homeowner's position. The homeowner had not only prepared legally but had cultivated a network of support that amplified their authority. Social pressure and legality converged, creating a scenario where the HOA's aggressive tactics were crumbling. The meeting escalated as the homeowner presented calculations showing how the panels complied fully with building codes and provided environmental benefits for the community. The HOA president attempted to interrupt, his voice rising, but each interjection was countered by clear, factual rebuttals and documented proof. The room seemed to lean in closer, sensing the shift of control from intimidation to justice. Legal counsel, previously engaged as a precaution, now provided formal observations, confirming that any attempt to impose fines or force removal of the panels would violate state law. The HOA president's confidence visibly wavered. The homeowner's strategy had neutralized threats, exposed overreach, and positioned them as not merely a resident defending personal rights, but as a representative of lawful authority and community fairness. The climax of the showdown came when the board was forced to vote on whether to enforce removal or fines. With public opinion, legal pressure, and neighborhood scrutiny weighing heavily, the motion was rejected. The homeowner's solar panels remained, and the HOA president faced the embarrassment of being overruled in front of peers and community members. The power dynamic had reversed entirely, intimidation and authority had been replaced by preparation, legality, and moral clarity. As the meeting adjourned, the homeowner stepped outside, greeted by neighbors who offered congratulations and admiration. The golden solar panels shimmered under the afternoon sun, not just as tools for energy efficiency, but as symbols of resilience and the triumph of right over arbitrary authority. The HOA president, once commanding and imperious, retreated quietly, a stark contrast to the confident homeowner whose foresight and diligence had secured victory. Chapter 5 closed with a sense of resolution, but also with the understanding that lasting change required vigilance. The homeowner had won the battle, but the narrative set a precedent for the entire neighborhood. Knowledge, preparation, and legal awareness could overcome even the most formidable bureaucratic opposition. The stage was ready for the final chapter, where aftermath and reflection would solidify the story of triumph. End of Chapter 5, natural break for Chapter 6, Aftermath and Reckoning. Chapter 6, Aftermath and Reckoning. The sun rose over the neighborhood the morning after the decisive board meeting, casting warm light across rooftops, lawns, and, most prominently, the homeowner's gleaming solar panels. The battle had been won, but the ripples of the confrontation were far from over. The HOA president, once confident and unchallenged, now faced scrutiny from neighbors, municipal authorities, and even local media, all drawn to the story of a homeowner who refused to bow to unlawful demands. The homeowner's sense of victory was tempered with reflection. Weeks of tension, research, and confrontation had tested patience and resolve. Yet the panels on the roof symbolized more than energy efficiency, they represented perseverance, justice, and the power of preparation. Each panel reflected not only sunlight but the homeowner's steadfast commitment to principle, a tangible reminder that rights, when understood and exercised, could not easily be taken away. The HOA, humbled and wary, had begun to re-evaluate its approach. Internal memos circulated among board members, acknowledging that overreach and intimidation had consequences. Some members expressed frustration, others embarrassment, as community support had clearly shifted away from arbitrary enforcement and toward fairness and legal compliance. The homeowner had not only defended their property but had exposed systemic weaknesses in the HOA's governance. Across the neighborhood, conversations changed. Residents who had once silently endured restrictive rules now discussed sustainable energy, property rights, and the importance of legal awareness. The homeowner's victory had sparked awareness and, quietly, empowerment. The story spread further as social media posts highlighted the triumph, inspiring other residents to consider renewable energy without fear of unreasonable HOA restrictions. The HOA president, facing both legal warnings and community disapproval, quietly began to retreat from aggressive enforcement tactics. The once dominant figure, accustomed to authority and unquestioned compliance, had been confronted with the limits of power. Their attempts to intimidate and control had backfired spectacularly, serving as a cautionary tale for future board members and homeowners alike. Meanwhile, the homeowner turned their attention to what had initially motivated the battle: sustainable energy and practical benefits for their household. Monthly energy bills dropped, the carbon footprint of the home decreased, and the property value subtly increased due to the visible solar installation. The outcome was not only moral and legal but practical, reinforcing the homeowner's decision to persevere against the odds. Reflection extended beyond the immediate conflict. The experience had reinforced the value of preparation, research, and community support. The homeowner recognized that standing firm against bureaucracy required both patience and a strategic approach, balancing assertiveness with legality. Every letter, photograph, and statute had contributed to the ultimate outcome, proving that informed action could overcome intimidation. As the day faded into evening, the neighborhood settled into a quiet harmony, the solar panels silently generating power, a testament to persistence and principle. The homeowner watched as the last rays of sunlight glinted off the panels, a sense of satisfaction and calm washing over them. The battle had been challenging, the opposition formidable, but justice and foresight had prevailed. Chapter 6 concluded with a lasting message: when authority oversteps, knowledge and courage can restore balance. The homeowner's triumph was a reminder to all that standing for what is right, even in the face of intimidation, could produce outcomes that were both just and transformative. The solar panels on the roof remained a shining symbol of resilience, legality, and the victory of informed determination over arbitrary power. End of Chapter 6, story complete.